Good morning. Happy Monday. The NHL makes its return tomorrow. The Coyotes play a regular season game on Friday. We freaking made it. Thank you all so much for tuning in to the PHNX Coyotes Podcast. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a 5-star review. I'm Leah here with Petey and Sean. Craig is at the IceDen.
Craig just sent us breaking news.
Did he?
Yeah.
Right off the top of the show.
So right off the top, so breaking news.
Oh, sheesh.
Yeah.
Per NHL source, the Colorado Avalanche have claimed goaltender Ivan Prosvetov off waivers. Travis Boyd and Zach Sanford cleared. Boyd will remain with the NHL club. All of this. Wow. Okay, breaking news off the top. We will get into all of this
at the end of the show
because Craig is at the IceDen getting all of the updates. You can go on his Twitter right now at Craig S. Morgan, getting all the updates from practice. He'll call in the end of the show. But before we get to Coyotes roster news moves, we got to talk about Dylan Guenther. There's a lot to get into. We're going to preview the Pacific Division, and we have a special guest to do that. But before we get there, there's literally, tomorrow the NHL season starts. So get your futures in now over at BetMGM because after today, after tomorrow, it's all going to change. So lock in your odds right now on BetMGM. They have futures for like the nation of the Stanley Cup winning team, how teams are going to finish in divisions, there's so much. Just go on there, scroll. I promise you'll find some stuff. We'll get into that a little bit more on tomorrow's show, as well as in our Coyotes season preview later this week. But if you haven't signed up for the BetMGM app yet, use the bonus code PHNX. You can place your first BetMGM Sportsbook wager through BetMGM Sportsbook mobile application of at least $10, and you'll receive $200 instantly in additional winnings regardless of your wager's outcome. You can check out the show notes for full details, and now you can listen to Shane talk about the disclaimer.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Colorado, D.C., Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, New Jersey, Nevada, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Wyoming. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 New York. Call 1-800-327-5050 Massachusetts. 21 plus to wager. Please gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP Arizona. 1-800-BETS-OFF Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 Puerto Rico in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. U.S. promotional offers not available in D.C., New York, or Ontario.
October might be my favorite month of the year. Hockey's back, basketball's back, MLB playoffs, football's in full swing. The weather's getting cooler. It's Halloween, and pumpkin everything is back, including pumpkin porter.
Pumpkin porter's back
at Four Peaks.
Great.
And if you've never walked into Four Peaks on 8th Street in the month of October, they have amazing brewery tours and events, Stein Holding Oktoberfest, and Haunted Brewery Tours, which I highly recommend. We did it last year. It was so fun. It's all right around the corner. So you can check out at Four Peaks Brew or at Four Peaks Pub to keep up with the latest at Arizona's hometown brewery. You must be 21 or older to drink Four Peaks. Please drink responsibly. And I know that PD and I will most likely be drinking Four Peaks during Friday's game, the first Coyotes game of the season. Well, we have a ton to get into today, so we will not delay it any longer, and we are really excited to welcome in a special guest. He covers the Vancouver Canucks for The Athletic, Thomas Drance. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us, Thomas.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And happy Canadian Thanksgiving, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, it was a big meal for the family last night up in Whistler for the weekend. It was a great time. Excited to get that done. Excited that hockey is back, and you can feel it in the air as it turns to fall up in Canada. Wednesday, the Canucks open against Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and the Edmonton Oilers.
Whoops.
So should be a heck of a show.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you joining us on the holiday.
Well, yeah, I know. So we're going to get into the Canucks first because that's where you are. And we've got a lot of connections, or have had over the years, a lot of connection to these Vancouver Canucks, and with head coach Rick Tocchet there. What do you make of the Vancouver Canucks offseason moves, the ins and the outs on this roster?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was all facilitated by the buyout of Oliver Ekman-Larsson, a person who, of course, you're viewers, I suppose, would be extremely familiar with.
Yeah.
Buying him out gave the club almost $7 million in cap space to spend this offseason, and they spent all of it. They went out, they signed a couple of depth centermen in Pius Suter and Teddy Bluger. They signed a couple of left-handed defensemen in Ian Cole and Carson Soucy. And then just like this weekend, traded for Sam Lafferty to sort of complete the renovation. I think the general thrust of these moves, all guys are penalty killers, right? All guys sort of bring a little bit more of the blue collar grit and grind style that Rick Tocchet's famous for. So, I think in a lot of ways, the renovations that the club made this offseason were to raise their floor on the penalty kill. And this is a team that's been one of the worst in the history of the league over the last 2 seasons, 4-on-5, and to sort of remake the team to some extent anyway, in Tocchet's image. We'll see if it's enough. This has been one of the most disappointing teams in the NHL for a variety of years running now. The expectations remain pretty high in this market. People think this should be a playoff team. It's going to be tough in the Pacific Division, but as camp has unfolded anyway, at least the same sense of fatalism, impending doom that has met some of the previous Canucks training camps has been reliably, notably absent. At least it feels functional. At least it feels like this team will enter the season on the same page.
You talk about, we've had Rick Tocchet here, and he knows, he's played with coached offensive teams, but he is always a guy that relies on defense and penalty killing and a little bit of grit, which you just mentioned. They have all increased in all of those areas. Does that give the fan base in Vancouver a little more optimism going into this season?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting dynamic to monitor here because you're right. Tocchet's had success as like the power play coach of the back-to-back Pittsburgh Penguins Stanley Cup winner. We know that he can coach offensive talent, and yet, I think the specter of how the Coyotes played when he was in the desert, and we all saw that was a pretty negative play style, right? Very defensively oriented. Now, was that based on having Kemper, Demers, Hjalmarsson, OEL, Labushkin, and a bunch of young forwards up front? Was that tailoring a system to fit the personnel, or is that what a Rick Tocchet team looks like? I think that's a major question, especially in a marketplace where, if you think about the history of the Vancouver Canucks, whether it's Pavel Bure or Bertuzzi Naslund or the Sedin twins, offensive hockey is prized here. This market runs out of patience pretty fast for defensive hockey if it's untethered to sort of the offensive pyrotechnics that people expect from this franchise. So that's going to be an interesting dynamic to monitor, especially because while Vancouver has a lot of high-end talent, you think about JT Miller, you think about Elias Pettersson, you think about Quinn Hughes, you think high-octane offensive contributors, and yet this team, even playing loosey-goosey run-and-gun hockey under Bruce Boudreau last year, and then Tocchet coming in, was 20th in the NHL in 5-on-5 goals scored. They were pretty dependent on their power play to manufacture offense, and their power play, which Tocchet is now sort of taken over, they don't have an assistant coach running the power play, is running a very new system relative to what they've done in the past with a pretty stationary 1-3-1 running through JT Miller on his downhill side. So, there are questions, or certainly I have some questions about whether the Canucks offense might be as dynamic, as productive, as prolific as it was last season going into this year. I think you can probably accept some trade-off if the club's not a train wreck defensively, which they were too frequently last season. But, it's an open question about whether or not this team, the way it's built, can be average or better, both at scoring goals and preventing them.
So I want to ask you about Quinn Hughes, because this team was one of many teams this summer who named a captain. How did he earn the captaincy in Vancouver, and how has he evolved as a player since he, stepped into the league?
Yeah, and, I think Quinn Hughes has grown a lot in terms of navigating the cumbersome media responsibilities that come with being the captain in Vancouver. It's not an easy job, and, unlike most hockey markets, it's not like the captain of the Canucks just wears a C and has to talk after losses. They sometimes have to attack political issues head on in this marketplace. They're expected to speak, to the community in a meaningful way. It's not an easy gig for a hockey player. And we saw Quinn Hughes step up in a variety of different fronts and seem comfortable doing that. I think also when you look at some of the other players that they could have named captain, right? And the team made this big show of saying Quinn Hughes is the captain, but we could have picked any of these four guys. One of them was Thatcher Demko, who's a goalie. So like, I mean, we did that with Luongo, right? Roberto Luongo was the captain in Vancouver. He's the only captain, goalie captain in the NHL in like 50 years. And it was a disaster. Like, it didn't work. So there's no way they were going to name Demko captain. JT Miller was the other option that they spotlighted, but no one takes that seriously. And then Elias Pettersson was the other guy they spotlighted, who's, entering this season with a ton of uncertainty around him, given that his contract's expiring and given that he declined to discuss an extension with the club. So he wasn't a realistic option either. I'm not saying they backed into picking Quinn Hughes, but if they were going to name a captain this year, he really was the only option that they had. I do think he's meaningfully grown into the role. I think he's a lead by example type, very low key. I think that's crucial in this market. I don't think you can have a raw captain or a very emotional captain in this marketplace. I think you need someone who fits the old, Bill Belichick doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low mantra. That's Quinn Hughes. So, I think those are some of the dynamics at play with him being captain. It'll be very interesting to see how his first season unfolds with the C on his chest.
Well, let's talk about the depth of the team overall. Obviously Hughes, Pettersson, Miller, Besser. Does this team have enough depth? Like, what are the biggest holes, I guess?
Yeah. Well, I'll be honest with you. I think they do have a depth issue, but it's not your classic depth issue where it's like, do they have enough third pair defensemen? Do they have a good enough third line? They have depth issues higher up the lineup than that, right? It looks like they're going to start the season with Hughes playing with Filip Hronek on the top pair, but that's something we've only seen in the last week. They've been sort of auditioning, whether it was Carson Soucy on his offside or Cole McWard, a 22-year-old rookie out of Ohio State. They've been auditioning players on Hughes's right side and have seemed to struggle a little bit to find a fit. Finally, we saw Hronek and Hughes play their first preseason game together on this weekend, like on Friday night, and it looked okay. It didn't look great. It looked okay, which is fine. It's just preseason, whatever. But, this team's unsettled on the top pair. This team's unsettled in the top four. Likewise, when it goes to the first line, it looks like they'll open the season with Beauvillier maybe, or maybe Mikheyev if he gets back in the line. Like, we don't know who's going to play with Pettersson and Kuzmenko on the Canucks' ostensible top line. We've got Phil DiGiuseppe, whose career high is 18 points, and that was in 2015-16. He's barely ever spent a full season on an NHL roster. He's locked in as the team's opening night second line left wing. And then the team didn't feel strongly enough about their depth to not go and pay a fifth round pick to jump the waiver queue and get Sam Lafferty. So, there are depth issues, but it's more about I don't know that they have enough depth of elite talent, right? It's not a bottom of the roster issue. It's an up and down the lineup issue. And that said, they still have Thatcher Demko, probably the best goaltender in the Pacific, and some other high-end stars that, you look at this team and you can certainly see how things could break right for them. But do they have enough depth? I don't even know if they have enough top of the lineup pieces.
Yeah, I think you talked about Thatcher Demko. He's going to absolutely have to be the best player on this Vancouver Canuck team if they're going to make any noise in the Pacific. But we're going to bring up another former Coyote. You got rid of OEL in that contract, which is amazing. And but you still have a former Coyote on that roster, and Connor Garland, who does had a good relationship here with Rick Tocchet. Rick Tocchet likes workers, and Connor Garland is a worker. How does he fit into what they're trying to do in Vancouver this season?
Yeah, I mean, Connor Garland, I think, is over the moon about having Rick Tocchet. He's actually the other guy who may start the season with Pettersson and Kuzmenko on the Canucks' top line. That's where he played in the final preseason tune-up. So he'd be another strong candidate to play there, which is surprising given how rarely he's played with Pettersson in the past. That really hasn't been a combo that the Canucks have leaned on with any level of frequency. So, it looks like Garland's, I think, upped his stock. I think Tocchet coming in has probably helped arrest some of the, fading value that he seemed to be having to the organization under Bruce Boudreau. Garland's who he is, right? Like, he's a really effective 5-on-5 rate scorer. He doesn't care about anything but winning, and he's going to reflect that attitude with everything he does on the ice. That motor is high. The skill level's there. I think one thing that's been a struggle for him since arriving in Vancouver is he hasn't yet found really good chemistry with a regular centerman here. And I think we all know that at his best, Connor Garland's a little bit puck dominant, right? And so's JT Miller and so's Elias Pettersson. So when he's been beside those guys, I don't know that it's been a perfect fit to this point. The positive side of that is that last year when Tocchet came in, he sort of counted on Garland to drive a third line, and that looked great. In that spot, he looked fantastic. So, Garland is a really interesting player in terms of figuring out how he fits into this lineup. It could be as high as the first line. It could be as an engine on the third line, and anywhere in between. So we'll see exactly where that works. But look, this fan base is a little bit lower on Garland than I think they should be. I think he's carried some baggage being attached to a trade that was clearly a disaster for this franchise. And I don't think that's fair. I think Connor Garland remains a very good top six player. We'll see we'll see whether he gets a real opportunity to play in a spot that high up the lineup consistently this season.
Awesome. Well, great breakdown of Vancouver. We're going to run through the rest of the Pacific Division teams and get your opinion, since you're kind of closer to it than us here over in the Central, which still makes no sense. But let's start with the defending Stanley Cup champs, the Vegas Golden Knights. Are they the favorite in the Pacific, and can they repeat this year?
So I think they're the best team in the Pacific, but whether or not they're the favorite to come away from the regular season with the most points, I would say no. I wouldn't pick them to win number one overall spot in the Pacific, in part because I don't really expect them to wake up till February. Not that I think they're going to be bad or anything. It's pretty hard to play hockey deep into June and then come back and run the gauntlet at full pace, from mid-October through to April and into the playoffs. We don't see it often, and we don't see it often for a reason. Vegas, at the end of the day, too, I think is built to sprint in some ways, right? They're built to, when they bring it, manhandle their opponents in a meaningful way and generate greasy goals from the blue paint and just be bigger and meaner and better and more creative than their opponents. I think it's really hard to play like that for 82. I expect we will see, for example, the power play merchants in Edmonton be a little bit better built to win more games or amass more points over 82 games. I'd pick Edmonton to win the division, but I think Vegas might still be the best team. They're certainly going to be the team to beat come, May and June. So, no disrespect to them, but I'd be surprised to see Vegas struggle. I'd be surprised to see them be the hottest regular season team in the Pacific as well. I think they'll settle in second or third and then be the team nobody wants to face when the first round begins.
And then she brought up Edmonton, so let's go to Edmonton next. Connor McDavid's won 4 series in his 8 seasons there. Is this the year that they finally get through and find their way to the Stanley Cup Finals?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be like after they picked up Matthias Ekholm from the Nashville Predators, and they paid heavily to acquire him, but they played 22 games and they lost 2 in regulation going into the playoffs. And then they were clearly, although I don't think we fully understood it at the time, the toughest test that Vegas faced in the playoffs. When you think about Edmonton dismantling Vegas in those 2 games, and then think about how much difficulty the Dallas Stars and the Florida Panthers had touching Vegas in any way, right? Roughing them up even remotely, putting them even under a lick of stress. That might have been the second best playoff performance we saw, even if it ended prematurely for McDavid and company. I promise you they remember that. One thing about the Oilers, right? Like they don't just win the game. They know the game within a game. They understand that part of it, right? You hear those stories about how in that room they knew if we can beat Calgary, we won't just advance. They will blow up their team, right? Like that's a team that uses whatever they can find to motivate them. They will find. honestly, I think Edmonton's not just going to be first in the Pacific. I think they're a very serious contender to win the President's Trophy. Now, what does that mean come playoff time? We'll see. But I think this Edmonton Oilers team, I think they're going to be hungry. I think they're going to be focused. I think they're better than they have been ever before in McDavid and Draisaitl's primes. I think Ekholm's a huge add to that roster. I think they're going to run roughshod over the regular season, and then we'll see if they get the bounces, if they get the luck, if they have what it takes when the playoffs begin.
Well, you might have me sold on that. A lot of people, though, are hyping the Los Angeles Kings as possibly a favorite to win the division. Do you buy into the Kings hype? What's your take on LA?
I do. I'm really high on LA. I think LA is going to be right there with Vegas and Edmonton. And the thing that really bothers me, to be totally honest with you, when you discuss LA is people say, well, what about their goaltending? And I don't particularly like their goaltending. But you know what? I don't particularly like a Skinner-Campbell tandem either in Edmonton. And I definitely don't particularly like a Hill-Brossois, whatever zero goalie strategy they're rolling out in Vegas. Like, there's not a goaltending tandem in the Pacific that you can take home and feel really, really strongly about. You're not introducing either any of these tandems to your mom. Like, come on, these are all hope bet tandems, and that's fine because it's the NHL, as we've seen, right? You think you have a goaltending edge in a series, Ottinger versus Adin Hill, until the puck drops, and you don't, right? So, I'm not worried about LA's goaltending. For me, they have four guys when you throw in David Riddick and Eric Portillo as well. And it's like one of those guys is going to get the job done. And if they don't, they'll go trade for a guy like they did with Korpisalo, mid-season last year. Everyone in this market, for example, talks about how bad Vancouver's goaltending was last year. And it was. But you know what? LA wasn't much better, and they were a 104-point team. They had an .889 save percentage. And if you've watched LA play over the last few years, like their north-south game, the discipline with which they play it is through the roof. What they haven't had is an east-west creator, like a really dynamic east-west creator. For me, Pierre-Luc Dubois brings that element in spades. And so if you're a Kevin Fiala type, an Adrian Kempe type, even if you're their young guy, oh my goodness, why Byfield? If you're a player like that, you've been pretty reliant on your own ability to create offense, to win a one-on-one battle down low or attack off the rush. All of a sudden, I think the Kings are going to have a game-breaking playmaker in their lineup on a day-to-day basis. And then you think about the matchup nightmare that is Kopitar, Deneau, Dubois down the middle, like all mean guys, all big guys. There's no soft minutes against the LA Kings. That defense, Gavrikov, Mikey Anderson. Like the slowest guy in their top four is Drew Doughty, and he's a top 20 skater, pure skater in the NHL history? I mean, mobile defense, disciplined play style, set identity, and they added a top of the lineup piece. Yeah, I think it's full send for the LA Kings this year. Wow. I think they're going to be really good.
I like it.
I think this division is going to be really good, right?
It's crazy how things changed in just a couple of years.
Yeah, we're getting to some that aren't so good, though. We're not there yet, but we're getting to a couple that maybe aren't going to be battling for that playoff
spot. It falls off fast.
Yeah, let's go to Seattle, because Seattle's a team that overachieved in last year's playoffs. Did they do it too soon, and can they do it again?
Yeah, that's a really interesting way to put it, and I think you hit the nail on the head. Here's what I'd suggest to you. I think Seattle was better in their first year than the results showed, and I don't think they were as good as the results showed last year. And I think the truth of this team is probably somewhere in the middle between that first and that second season, and maybe this is the year we get that baseline performance. I certainly don't think they're going to be as opportunistic finishing their chances as they were last year when they led the NHL in shooting percentage 5-on-5. That sort of finishing efficiency, some might call it puck luck, will hide a lot of sins, and I think it did for the Kraken. All of that said, I'm reminded of a quote that Brian Burke once delivered about the 2003 Minnesota Wild. That was the Jacques Lemaire Minnesota Wild. So, a recent expansion team punching above their weight. And he said, that's not a hockey team, it's a cult. Wow. And I saw the Kraken play twice in the preseason live. And it does not matter. It does not matter who's in their lineup. It doesn't matter who's out of their lineup. That team plays the same way. That team plays the same way. They all know exactly how they're going to attack other teams. They all know exactly where the other four guys are on the ice at all moments. And as a result, like, they look faster than they are, and they're pretty fast. They look more creative than they are, and they've got some creative players. They are built to be at least annoying, and I think they might be imposing outright. I think that team, like baseline talent level, I think they're a fringe playoff team. But if there's a team among that class or that tier in the Pacific that I feel most confident in overachieving between them, Calgary, and Vancouver, it's them, and by a lot.
All right. Well, let's move on to Calgary then. This one is really interesting to me because Calgary was, a playoff team just 2 seasons ago. It seemed like everything went wrong that could go wrong last year. And now there's a lot of question marks about even the players wanting to play there, but they've made a lot of moves. Obviously got Daryl Sutter out. Is the change in the coaching enough to rejuvenate what happened with Calgary? Like, what is your stance on the Flames? I'm really interested.
Yeah, the vibes are good going into this season, which it matters because that team, they lost like 31 goal games. They just couldn't get it done after overtime started. I mean, that team was not, the low 90s point total team that they actually were. In terms of their true talent, in terms of their true ability. That was a much better team than what the results showed last year. And yet, you lose to Foley. Shillington's not back, which I think is a way bigger loss than people realize. And I still sort of look at this roster and think, it's almost the inverse of the LA Kings. It's like, what if you take a really structured, disciplined team and put a genuine creative driver on it? I still look at this Flames team and wonder, is this a really well-built team in search of a superstar, right? Like, is this a bunch of contributing players, useful guys who can help you win, but not necessarily the guy that can carry you over the finish line? I'd add this, the Shillington thing still worries me because I love the players on the Calgary blue line, right? Like, I have all the time in the world for Mackenzie Weegar. I have all the time in the world for Chris Tanev. I gave him a Norris vote a couple of years ago. I think Rasmus Andersson is sorely underrated. I think Noah Hannafin's a legitimate top pair guy. I even like Nikita Zadorov a lot as a, super versatile bruiser, maybe best suited to being a 4-5, but nonetheless a useful guy. Do they have enough push? Do they have enough push from the back end? I mean, they don't have their answer to Quinn Hughes or Vince Dunn or, Vegas plays Shea Theodore on the third pair. LA, I talked about their speed on the back end, right? So I sort of look up and down this lineup and just wonder, do the Flames have enough puck moving? Do they have enough dynamism on the back end to offset the fact that I don't know that they have any real true superstar level elite contributors at the top of their lineup? That to me is the big question. Obviously their goaltending, it could be a problem. It's too crowded in that crease. Dustin Wolf needs games. Jacob Markstrom needs to bounce back. If they get good goaltending and if the vibes are on, they're still going to be a tough out, but I don't know. I don't know if that's a well-built team. I still think they need a guy who can really create some havoc skating from the back end up.
Well, I'm going to put these two teams together because unfortunately they're both still in the Pacific Division, so we have to mention them at least. The Coyotes have played the Anaheim Ducks 3 times in a row here in preseason, and it has been ugly. This Duck team has not been impressive at all. So I'm throwing both of these at you for your last quick comments on these Pacific Division teams in California, the Anaheim Ducks and the San Jose Sharks.
Yeah, and I just want to note, I don't think these teams should be grouped together because I think the Sharks are going to be significantly worse than the Ducks.
Yeah, that is a bad hockey. They're last. They're last. They're last. They're last in the Pacific and potentially last in the NHL.
Oh, I would take the potentially out. I think the Sharks are going to be bad. I think they're going to be like one of the worst teams we'll see over a 5-year stretch.
Wow.
I think this Sharks team is going to be cataclysmic. Anyway, so that's what I'll say about the Sharks. Not a ton else to say. Shout out though to good guy Kyle Burrows, who signed there as a free agent. He'll at least stand up and look to police and give them honest minutes. But man, that is a tough situation with a brutally underskilled team. The Ducks, maybe they got manhandled because the Coyotes are going to be good this year, by the way.
I'm
not just pandering.
They are. Thomas, I'll say this. That team is better than people think. That Coyotes team is much better than people think.
My baseline expectation for that Coyotes team is like 85 points and playing interesting games in the last month and a bit of the season. Like, they're going to be fun, man. Yeah. They're going to be fun. I'm telling you right now, I'm watching 30 games of the Coyotes just out of interest, just because I think there's a ton of fun stuff going on in the desert. I think Armstrong's done a really good job. And by the way, I think the work he did building up the right side of that blue line on an absolute shoestring this summer is going to hold up. People are going to look at that and be like, man, those guys, Dumba and Stetcher, and those guys shouldn't have been that affordable. So I mean, but I think the Ducks will be like 70-ish points. I think you're going to see a return to baseline professionalism for the Ducks. Yeah. And I'm really high on a bunch of their young players, including Trevor Zegras. I know there's a lot of concern about Zegras. Zegras is an elite player, man. He's going to be totally fine. The Ducks are going to be a far more competent professional team than the disorganized, unserious group we saw last year.
Wow. Well, Thomas, this has been awesome. Wow. I just got so hyped with your take on the Coyotes. We've been hearing it a lot. We feel kind of in a bubble here. Like, we're excited, but it's really nice to hear outside voices, especially. And I know we generalize about Canadian media a lot, but you are a member of Canadian media, so we really appreciate that take.
And that's a tough market, by the way.
Yeah, Vancouver.
Woo. People talk about Toronto, man. Vancouver is tough.
Yeah. But
the difference is that in Toronto, at the end of the day, and some of the other Canadian markets, like, they really want their team to succeed, whereas we just want to cover the team fairly. Yeah, and this team hasn't warranted anything but tough coverage over the last few years. So we're going to keep doing that, and hopefully we get to have some fun along the way. And I'm not just like tuning into Devils, Sabres, and Coyotes games for my hockey excitement this year.
Go Sabres.
Yeah, seriously. All right. Well, Thomas, thank you so much. We really appreciate your insight. This has been great, and we encourage everyone to check out your work at The Athletic as well.
Thank you so much for having me. All the best.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Thank you, Thomas.
Appreciate you.
Oh, well.
Wow. How about that little Coyote love?
I'm feeling hype.
Yeah.
I'm feeling great.
The Pacific Rundown gets a little Coyotes love.
Seriously. Wow. Well, first of all, Thomas brought the energy. I'm feeling hype. We have so much to get to still.
I know.
There's so much Coyote stuff that's going on, and I know everyone's itching to talk about it. I promise we will. I'm going to text Craig right now that we're almost ready
and I
for
went.
him.
I know people really want to know about my personal life. First thing this morning, I had to run to the airport, which is all the way, it's a long way, and back home, and then from home back here again. So,
that sucks.
So right after the airport at 7:30 a.m., where did I stop?
Circle K.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Circle K. I doubled up on the gas and a little bit of caffeine. I got a little coffee I know Craig would never get Circle K coffee, but I did.
Love it. Yeah, it's great. Charles got Circle K coffee before his road trip to Tucson.
So I went to Circle K. Unfortunately, they did not have Leah Merrill. They didn't have any videos on their.
That's a bummer.
Yeah, up at just off Scottsdale Road. But I did make my stop into Circle K, so everybody can go to CircleK.com. And what's the locator thing?
Well, just CircleK.com for details, and that's how you can join the Inner Circle as well, which is Circle K's free membership program that saves you 25 cents per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups. Yeah.
So that saved me a lot.
You've been doing a lot of driving. Petey drove us to and from Tucson, by the way.
So I saved up today.
Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for details. And as we await Craig, this was like a crazy weekend. Saturday, again, was so fun. Like, we can't thank
Saturday
you
was
enough.
Fun, but we couldn't do what we wanted to do. Sunday was relaxing.
Yeah, Sunday was relaxing. And at that point, like, sometimes, when you're just too, like...
Yeah, let that deep breath
amped,
out.
Like, that's why I like having OGs around, because sometimes I just need like to take the edge off. And what I like about OGs is they have something for every occasion, because they have the Happy Balance, they have the Indica Sativa microdose if you just want a little bit. If you need help getting to sleep, they have the Sleep Edition gummy. OGs, they have something for everybody. So if you haven't tried them, also delicious flavors, like ridiculously good. You can check out our friends at OG's Brands for yourself and try one or a few of their many delicious flavors. And you can check them out across all socials at OG's Brands and online at ogsbrands.com to find them at a local dispensary near you. You must be 21 or older to enjoy responsibly.
Yeah, and Karen, she's in the Sip and Save.
Sip and Save is clutch.
Go,
and Nicholas says Circle K coffee is underrated.
Yeah, people that can't handle like bougie Craig, like he's got to have fresh press that he's just not. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing about Circle K. Like, if you go, they have the machines that like grind the coffee fresh for you. It's not like
it's fresher than
just because it's at a gas station doesn't mean it's bad coffee. That's it.
I would say it's fresher than most places you'd get coffee.
That's true.
Like, I don't see Dunkin' Donuts, not to name names, grinding their beans fresh.
We need to kind of start like a campaign pro Circle K coffee.
Yeah.
All right. Well, while we wait for Craig, and we're going to get into all of the news, Ivan Prosvetov claimed off waivers by the Avalanche. Dylan Guenther assigned to Tucson yesterday. Travis Boyd waived, but still with the team. Kesselring and Kolyachonok recalled from Tucson. Some defensive injuries on the back end for the Coyotes. There is so much to cover. So as soon as Craig calls, we'll get into it. But I think just before he gets here, we'll take... What, do you have something?
Yeah, I have something, because I reached out to Megan Ainsley over at DNVR about their goaltending situation and what's the drive behind this from Colorado. Because keep in mind, when you send a player like Ivan Prosvetov through waivers and the Colorado Avalanche pick him up, he has to play on their NHL club. Like they're not sending him to the Colorado Eagles because they can't. Yeah. So he's got to play there. And they've got Georgiev and Francouz. So they've got 2 NHL goalies already. So I reached out to Megan at DNVR, and she filled me in that Francouz is not on the IR right now, but they anticipate that he will not be ready for opening night. So they need to have somebody that they feel is an NHL comparable goalie to get started for the first few weeks, because Francouz will probably go on the IR as they approach opening night, and thus the Ivan Prosvetov move. But when he goes back on waivers, which he will, when Francouz becomes healthy, then the Coyotes can pick him up again.
Yeah, it's just crazy that this happened after just months of us talking about, it's his time to step up. He's a guy to watch. How is Villalta going to press him in Tucson? And that's not to say that it can't happen again, that he would go back on waivers and the Coyotes would reclaim him. Just an interesting turn of events. It
is interesting, because I think when I look at that team in Colorado, that we haven't had our Central Division breakdown yet, but when you look at a top 6 defense, Colorado is elite. Like, they can defend extremely well. They don't defend similar to Vegas, who won the Stanley Cup by defending, but Colorado has really good defensemen. So Prosvetov in front of or behind that defensive core, I think maybe we'll have a chance, but I think you're going to see a heavy dose of Georgiev to start the season. Yeah. This Colorado team did not have the season they wanted after winning the Stanley Cup. They're knocked out in the first round by Seattle. They are going to want to amass wins quickly here because they know injuries later could cost them. So I think you'll see a heavy dose of Georgiev. I think Prosvetov will sprinkle in there until Francouz is healthy. And when you see Francouz back in the lineup, I would not be surprised at all if you see Ivan Prosvetov back in Tucson and claimed by the Arizona Coyotes off of waivers.
Caleb said the old, who would even claim him on waivers, jinx.
I know, exactly.
Whoops.
Yeah, be careful what you say there, because there are so many teams, and they're not the only team that's looking at goaltending help. Like, there's teams that I think are going to be in trouble. Tampa Bay is one of them.
And you know what's crazy? For the first time in forever, like, the Coyotes are in a really good goaltending position.
But if you want to be the Tampa Bay Lightning going into their game with Jonas Johansson or Jonas,
we've had him.
Sean DePaz have seen him in Buffalo. He's a disaster.
He was here for like 5 seconds. Crazy.
Yeah, he was here
part of the dark days of Sabres
the dark
hockey.
days of the Sabres.
But also, so was Linus Allmark. So
yeah, he was just on the verge there, though. He was so close. He was no
wild.
Ryan Miller.
No.
Bob Solvay.
Craig also said, so Travis Boyd and Zach Sanford cleared waivers, but as Craig mentioned, Boyd will remain with the Coyotes. We'll talk to Craig a little bit more about why and what that means. But he is on the ice for practice today.
Who Craig is?
Travis Boyd.
Oh.
Per Craig. Per Craig.
Misplaced. What do you call the pronoun? Is it misplaced pronoun? Yeah, it's misplaced pronoun.
I don't know. Craig's normally the one who's on the grammar.
That's me. I'm sharp today. It's all the coffee. It's the Circle K coffee.
It is true.
Hockey season starts tomorrow, by the way. This is tomorrow. Shit. Sabres. We're going to talk a lot about the Sabres more. I'm so fired up for this hockey club. I got to watch them. By the way, we'll talk about that more with my good buddy behind the Mac, Sean DePaz. I have the Buffalo Sabres next week in another job, so I get to watch them all week long. Can't wait.
By the way, we had our fantasy draft last night.
You did?
And Sean,
is he the Buffalo Sean?
Oh, yeah, I'm still Tage against the machine. I had like the 4th overall pick. I said, screw it, I'm drafting Tage. And then I came back around and I said, screw it, I'm drafting Deline.
Buddy.
And then I also drafted
Dylan
Cousins. I took Tucky, I think.
Yeah, you did.
Oh my god.
I took Owen Power. The only one I didn't get was Devin Levi because Shane's a rat bastard. And then the audacity. I tried to do a little, friendly Matthias Michelli.
And Barrett. I thought it was Barrett.
Or was it Barrett? Yeah, Barrett Hayton. I offered Barrett Hayton for Devin Levi, straight up.
Yep.
And this guy Shane comes back with, how about Lawson Krause, who was also on my team, and Tage Thompson in return for Devin Levi.
I tell you what, though, the Tage Thompson pick in the top 4, this kid is so good. yeah, he's a top 10 points guy in the NHL for sure. Like, and I think this year you're going to see him go above and beyond. And one of the biggest reasons is because that's a really good hockey team in Buffalo. And you're going to see him in Buffalo right before he signs with his hometown Arizona Coyotes.
Relax.
I'm going to keep
after he wins the cup.
Okay. Yeah, you can win a cup in Buffalo and come here. Just like, so the cup could go Toronto to Matthews,
it's the homecoming
Buffalo
tour.
to Tage Thompson, and then they can both come back
Nyes
here.
And Matthews,
and Matty Nyes,
2 for 1.
So they all win their cup and come back here. Let's speak it into existence. So you told Craig to come. What the hell is he doing?
I don't know.
You can keep talking about my fantasy team if you need to.
No, but this is what I want to talk about while we wait for Craig. Let's quickly give our Pacific Division predictions. Sure. We'll get Craig's later. This division is fascinating. Thomas kind of convinced me on the Oilers, though. So I don't know. This is going to be tough. Who wants to start?
Why don't you start? Because you started.
Okay, I'll start.
And I'm typing.
Normally, I write out my list and read it, but we're just gonna swing for it. So I'm gonna pick Edmonton 1, Vegas 2, LA 3, Seattle 4, Calgary 5, Vancouver 6, Anaheim 7, San Jose 8.
Okay. That is literally exactly what I did, so I'll change
really?
it. I'm going to change it because I'm not going to be the same as you because I know you're not going to win.
Mine is different, so if you want to keep
why don't we jump to you?
Okay, I am all on the PLD train, Pierre-Luc Dubois.
Okay.
I'm still picking Edmonton to win the division.
Okay.
And I promise this is not just because I kind of hate Jack Eichel. I'm taking the Kings to finish second.
They could.
Why not? I mean, I might be drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit, but and then I'm going Vegas because it's Vegas. I really don't know what to do with the Kraken and Flames. Part of me wants to put the Flames over Kraken. So I'm going to do it. Yeah. Flames over Kraken. Yeah. I mean, I believe in Huberdeau. I think kind of like
I drafted him and Sean was mad.
I was mad because I had my eye on him.
I think it's time for redemption for him.
Yeah, same. But and kind of like Thomas just said, I think the reality of the Kraken is somewhere in between. I have a hard time seeing them. I don't know. Just repeating what they did last year. I think they overachieved last year. So, yeah. And then the Ducks and Sharks because like we talked about. Sharks
I stopped after Seattle. So Seattle and then Seattle. Then it was Vancouver, Anaheim, San Jose.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to go way off. I'm going to scramble it just because I don't want to be like you guys. Okay. And I literally had yours, Liz, but I'm throwing that into the wind, and I'm going to go Edmonton Oilers to win the division. I'm going to go with Vegas in second. I'm going to go with Calgary.
Ooh.
In third.
That's fun.
New coach, get rid of Daryl behind the bench. Markstrom's going to have a rebound year. Huberdeau is going to come out of nowhere, and you're going to go, oh my gosh, this is going to be a fun team again. They're going to have that fire, and they're going to get into third. See what I did there, Flames? So they're going to be in third. Fourth, Seattle Kraken. The LA Kings fall to fifth, miss the playoffs.
Whoa.
Their goaltending is horrific. Cam Talbot, like, buddy, he stinks.
Whoa.
They lose both Quick and Peterson, who weren't, by the way, great. But Cam Talbot, to rely your entire playoffs on Cam Talbot is a big mistake. This team fizzles, I think, without Gabe Vilardi and in key players like Iafallo. I don't think Pierre-Luc Dubois is the answer, and I don't think fits in LA. So I got LA way down, Vancouver, Anaheim, San Jose, because San Jose's sad.
Yeah, I think Thomas kind of gave a great summary of San Jose and Anaheim there at the bottom. Interesting. Okay, so we have a couple in the chat. Charles has the same as me. Ogie said Edmonton, LA, Vegas, Vancouver, Calgary, Seattle, Anaheim, San Jose. Interesting.
Yeah, and Seattle's gonna be interesting because they could fall that far.
Yeah.
And it's, I wonder if their goaltending, if it's all of these are going to fall into goaltending. And in Vegas, putting them in third might be the right move because I do agree, but there's something to the Stanley Cup hangover.
Yeah.
And right now, to play meaningful games in October, they just got done.
Yeah.
Like, they're not going to give a shit for a while.
I think they're still hungover.
Yeah.
To be honest. Blatantly Asinine has Edmonton, Vegas, LA, Calgary, Seattle, Vancouver, Anaheim, San Jose. So the Pacific's interesting. It's just insane how we went from 2 years ago. The Central is the strongest division, and now we're saying the Pacific is the stronger, I think, for sure, of the two West divisions. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting in the West. It's really interesting. We've been seeing a lot of like NHL people make their season predictions, and I've seen Coyotes a lot in wild cards. We're going to preview the Central Division on Wednesday. I saw someone asked if we were going to preview it with DNVR or CHGO. Megan from DNVR will be joining us on Wednesday to preview the Central. Yes, that's on Wednesday.
I can't keep track of all this stuff.
Yeah, that's okay. It's a busy week. So, there's a lot going on, it feels like. And since
Did
Craig...
he write you back?
No, I've texted him like 4 times. But we don't need Craig.
So let's move on.
Let's start with Dylan Guenther's assignment to Tucson. That was kind of the big news yesterday. I think the general feeling among our group chat was a little bit of shock, but not in the shock that like the move happened because it wasn't deserved, but the shock that they actually followed through on it, because I do think, and you can go back and run the tape on our show for the since the preseason started, this has kind of been what we thought should happen, and the fact that it did happen was the surprising part of it.
Yeah, and I think it's funny because right away when he got to Australia and you put him on the line with Logan Cooley, and I like Dylan Guenther a lot, and he's just a kid, but when you put him with Cooley and Zucker, he just didn't keep up. He didn't play with the pace that he needed to play with. You go back to what he did here a season ago, I still think he needs more time, and we said it on this show for 2 weeks. And then you saw him paired with Cooley again and again and again. And I thought, okay, well, they're just going to give it a try for a few games, see if they can find that chemistry. And they did something that totally shocked me, and they did what I think is best for not only the kid, but for the franchise. And trust me, this is a hard move for Bill Armstrong to make. And this is a hard meeting to sit there with Andre Tourigny and Dylan Guenther and Bill Armstrong, sit in a room and go, okay, kid, you're going to Tucson. Like, that's hard to do, because this is a young man that expected to be here and expected to be a part of not only the top 6, he also wanted to be a big part of their power play. So I think I'm sure he was surprised. Now, this is the test. What does he do in Tucson? Because you can go one of 2 ways here. We saw it with Kyle Turris. Kyle's like, I'm not going. I'm not doing that. Screw you. Trade me. Or you can go down there and go, okay, I'm going to bust ass and I'm going to be the best player I can be down here. And I'm going to show those guys and stick it up their rear end and go, I'm really good. And I'm going to show you I'm really good. And I'm going to work hard. I'm going to do everything right. I'm going to be a good citizen and a good player. And if you get that out of him, this is going to be a huge learning experience for Dylan Guenther. He's going to play incredibly meaningful minutes there.
Yes.
He's top power play.
Yes.
Hopefully we see him on a line with Josh Doan.
Which Craig said he heard is not out of the question.
And so can you imagine like the development of those two together? We talked about Cooley and Guenther developing together. Can you imagine Doan and Guenther? Maybe that's the 2 pair that you go, oh my gosh, those
Even
2 together.
Both righties.
But get them in, put Josh in the middle and let them. I like it.
Yeah.
I do think that there's some evolution there that they could grow together into. Hey, maybe they're not a first line pair, but maybe they're a third line pair. And you go, oh my gosh, they're out there playing. Like Tampa Bay won the Stanley Cup because of their third line. Maybe the Arizona Coyotes win it with Doan and Guenther sitting on the third line. They can play both sides of the ice and have offense. I don't know. I think it's a good move for the organization. It's just going to be interesting to see how Dylan Guenther responds to this. And I'm sure he is pissed today. I'm sure today is not a good day to be him, but he gets to hit the ice.
But it's like, not to be as the cheesiest person ever. It's like not how you fall, it's how you get up.
Yeah.
Like that, just to throw a cliche. This is the perfect opportunity for Dylan Guenther to prove himself. And I think what's good about this, and we've talked about this, one of the notes that we just noticed from him in the preseason, and Andre Tourigny said it himself. He said it in Australia. He said he's really good away from the puck. He still needs some help on the puck, which is the problem, because if you drafted someone to be a scorer, you need to have the puck. Obviously, there's a little bit of apprehension, and that's fine. Dylan Guenther came from the Western Hockey League, the CHL. It's a different style of play than somewhere like college. He was a 9th overall pick, and like, we should not be comparing Logan Cooley to Dylan Guenther, because they're 2 different players. They're 2 different prospects. They come from 2 different backgrounds. As John Ferguson Jr. said on the show on Saturday, Logan Cooley is never going to be in Tucson, most likely. Dylan Guenther, he needs to build confidence right now. And the best place to do that is somewhere like the AHL, which is a developmental league. Again and again, people say the NHL is not a developmental league. The AHL is. And what Dylan Guenther needs right now is development. He needs to build confidence. And he has performed at the highest level in the WHL. He was a league leader. His team made it to the Memorial Cup. Like, he's accomplished all there is to accomplish there. He needs to now go down to the AHL, do that there, dominate there, because then when he steps up to the NHL, when his time has come, he'll be ready to step into that role and say, I've competed against men, I've had success against men, and not to say it's going to be an easy transition, but he'll at least have that confidence, because you can't just wake up one day and be confident. You have to build it over time. So I think this is the best situation for him. We kind of put a pulse check out there on Twitter yesterday. I would say like 98% of people thought this was the right move. There were a few people who, you know, obviously like not everyone's going to agree on something. But I think for the most part, everyone thinks this is a great move.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that this fan base understands is the future because they've gone through the rebuild and they go, okay, it's not about today. Oh, he's a draft pick. He should be here right now. He's 20 years old. Like he is a child right now. He's 20. This is okay. He got 6 of his 19 points last year, all on the power play. So he needs to learn to play 5-on-5. You look at his average ice time last year, he averaged 13 minutes a game. He needs to play more. When he goes down to Tucson, he's going to play 18 to 20 minutes a night, and he's going to be out there on every important faceoff, and he's going to be in there on every important power play. He is going to get more important minutes than he would here. It's just reality. So he is going to evolve his game in the American Hockey League. And you're right. There absolutely, without doubt, he is going to get opportunities to play in the National Hockey League this season. There are going to be injuries. There's going to be opportunities for him to get called up. So this is an absolute positive move, not just for the franchise, but it's a positive move for Dylan Guenther himself.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, we will bring in the one and only Craig live from the IceDen. Craig, welcome. Oh,
wait, we can't hear Craig.
You.
Well,
it's not your fault, Craig. It's not your fault, Craig.
Hold tight.
We'll figure it out. Have to hang up on you, so stay tuned.
Just call back.
Call back, Craig.
Call back, Craig.
Sorry, it's our fault, not you. All right.
It's me, not you.
It's not you.
Use
It's
that
me.
line, by the way. I don't know.
We don't need to get into that.
Not today. That's a much longer show.
Oh boy.
Yeah, but this is a point that Blake and Asinine brought up that I do want to bring up. Is Shane Wright. Remember how that draft, everybody, the Cooley draft, it was Shane Wright, wrong for right. And Shane Wright's going to the American League right now. Mm-hmm. And are people freaking out about that? Yeah, probably a little bit. But the point of it is, if Shane Wright can go, Dylan Guenther can go to the American League. Everything's going to be okay. And here he is again. Let's see if it works this time.
We'll try. All right. Craig, speak.
No. DP?
It's not your fault, Craig. It's not your fault. Oh, try now.
Can you hear me now?
Yay!
Hey. I don't even have my headphones. I don't have time. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
It's all good. Let's dive right in, Craig. There's a lot to cover.
Yes, there is. Ivan Prosvetov, I imagine you're talking about that at this point.
Yeah.
Yep.
We always knew this was a possibility. I got to admit, I'm surprised it was Colorado of all teams that claimed him. He's got to go to the NHL roster, so we'll see how that all plays out. I'm actually trying to gather some intel from up in Denver to see what the plan is. We'll hear that a little later, but one of the things that I always wonder here, if they put him on the NHL roster and then they have to send him down because they decide he's not their backup, well, he's got to go through waivers again. And guess who gets first claim on him? It's the Coyotes. So that would be wild if it was just that.
Yeah, exactly what we talked about, the situation to likely happen.
See how it plays out. Listen, there's a lot to say about Prosvetov. At one point, he was considered a really high-end goaltending prospect for them. He came on strong early. I think he plateaued a bit. Hasn't showed consistency either here or in Tucson. I hate to say this, but I don't think he was always a willing student. And that might have been part of the problem. And we saw what the Coyotes went out and did this summer, drafting 3 goaltenders. They also brought in Matt Vialta. Haven't had a chance to get what the plan is for Tucson at this point because they're obviously going to need a second goaltender now. But they've got a guy that they know can play in the AHL, at least right now, and they've got a lot of prospects. So in some ways, it sort of sets the clock back, right? If Prosvetov was going to come along, you could expect him a little sooner. It's not going to happen as soon with the guys that they just drafted.
Yeah. We kind of touched on Prosvetov already.
And Guenther. Wait, just your quick thoughts on Dylan Guenther going down.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's right. Pete, you and I talked about this a lot. He just looked like he wasn't ready. He couldn't keep up with the pace playing with Logan Cooley and Jason Zucker. I don't know that it makes sense to play him on the fourth line. I guess they could have tried that, but they just felt like he needed to do some more things, especially like one of the things that Bill told me, I just talked to him, is in the hard areas, right? It just doesn't look like he's right. He's a guy where you get him in open space, you can see all of his skills and all of his abilities, but he still needs to learn to play that hard game. He's not quite there yet, so they really think that Tucson's the right place for him, and honestly, I think we should all probably be breathing a sigh of relief that we're not going to watch another prospect rush, because it's been happening so many times. It's happened so many times in the past in this organization. You can rattle off a half dozen key names that were rushed, and it probably adversely impacted their development.
One thing on that, Craig, did you happen to see who's next up on the right side with Logan Cooley today, who they are throwing in there right now?
Yeah, I ran up here as they were starting to do line rushes. But I think it's going to be Kerfoot. We saw that. I think it's going to be Kerfoot that's going to play with them, and then you're going to have that fourth line that we talked about. Travis Boyd, when he cleared waivers, he's going to stay with the club. So you've got Boyd, Carcone, and Liam O'Brien all vying for 2 spots, presumably around Jack McBain on the fourth line. And as we've talked about, it could depend on matchups, right? Skill or big team, who you're playing. That may be how they decide who's in that particular night.
Can you explain the Travis Boyd thing? Because I'm not an expert on waivers, and like, how does he go through and then still play? Like, what is all the reasoning behind all that?
Yeah, it's a paper move, and now they're allowed to send him down. I can't remember the amount of days. I can't remember if it's 10 or 30 days. You can send him down now without having to send him through waivers again. Again, I don't know that that's going to happen, but I think it creates some roster flexibility for them more than anything else. That's the reason for the move.
All right, let's move on to the defenseman, because I think there was also in that same tweet from PR that included Dylan Guenther's assignment. We also saw a later tweet, I guess, movement with the defense with the recalling of Kesselring and Kolyachonok from Tucson, which we've been talking literally for 2 weeks. Oh, there's still one more defenseman who's probably going to go down, and all of a sudden Soderstrom's not moving. They're calling up 2 defensemen, which raises the question, is someone hurt? What's happening? So can you kind of give us the latest on the defense situation?
Yeah, Josh Brown and Travis Dermott were not on the ice for practice today. I was told actually that Troy Stetcher was dealing with something as well, but he went on the ice in practice today. So here's the thing. They don't play till Friday. I would not be surprised at all if Kolyachonok and Kesselring actually went back to Tucson today. I think those other guys may be ready, or at least they may have enough defensemen ready. I think Josh Brown will be ready to go as well. I'm not sure about Travis Dermott yet, but they do have Victor Soderstrom to fill in case he's not ready. So I think that's the reason why right now there are 10 defensemen on the NHL club, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, I think everything just kind of took an interesting turn, and we've been, all week, it's like, oh, who are they going to send down? And all of a sudden, like, then you think, oh my God, what happened? Who's injured? What's going on? And we haven't even played a regular season game yet.
Yeah, I'm not surprised with Brown. You saw him, he sat out the last 2 preseason games, and that's unusual for a player that you're anticipating to play opening night, sitting out both of those games. 1, I would see, but 2, you started to question maybe there is something a little bit more going on here. The good news is he's a veteran player that can miss a few preseason games. As long as he's healthy by Friday, he can play. If it was a guy that was making his debut in the NHL, you'd sure like him to play another preseason game. But Brown is ready to step in and play Friday if he's healthy enough. I don't think that's any concern for anybody if he's healthy.
Yep. Agreed completely. Yeah. And I like I said, I think Josh is going to be ready to go. So it's just a matter of finding out, first of all, what's going on with Travis Dermott and what the timeline is. But we'll get Andre here very shortly.
Okay, well, I know.
Go to work then.
Yeah, I know you have to get going to catch them. Anything else that we didn't touch on, that any news updates or nuggets from the IceDen?
No, I don't think so at this point. Just look, I'm just happy the season's here, guys. No more preseason. We get to talk about actual hockey and all the great storylines around this team. It's a really interesting season.
Speaking of storylines, Craig, what do we expect from you on the written side over the next 4 days?
Well, I can tell you I'm going to have a story every day this week.
What?
Obviously, I'm previewing the season.
Are they paying you overtime? And not telling me?
I'm going to be talking about where the prospects are going, previewing the season, looking at this road trip, looking at some more details with Inside. I've got some specific content planned for the road trip that's sort of native to those cities where they're going, stories around that's what I try and do when I go on the road. So looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to kicking off the season, and I always, as you know, love going back to New York.
Lastly, before you go, Craig, people in the chat blatantly asinine just asked if we can anticipate Voracek or Weber clearing the IR and making it to the opening night roster. Anybody?
By the way, I know Leah's probably seen this on the Coyotes content plan because Leah actually reads the Coyotes content.
Yeah, once in a while.
I have a story on the Legends Corner. At some point, it will come. I promise. I keep pushing the date back, pushing it back as stuff happens, but I got to write that story.
Oh, man. All right, Craig. Well, we'll let you get going so you can grab Bear after practice, and everybody can check in on Craig's Twitter at Craig S. Morgan for all the latest updates from practice. But, Craig, there was a lot today, so thanks for hopping on, even though it was later than we anticipated.
Yeah, nice hat, too.
Yeah, Melbourne Ice represent.
Yeah. Must have lost mine in the mail on the way here.
I'll give you one after the show.
Okay.
Yeah, Leah's got like 40 of them, so you can get one.
All right, Craig.
Tomorrow.
All right,
See ya, Craig.
See ya. Well, Craig mentioned that he has stories every day this week. Craig works really hard. It's insane. And what I like about Craig's writing too is he always finds unique angles on things. So if you want to check out his work and support his work, go to gophnx.com where you can read all of his stories. And if you haven't subscribed to the newsletter already, I highly recommend you do so. You can select which teams you want to get newsletters from. So if you're only interested in Coyotes, you can do that. If there's other teams you love, you can do that as well. And the newsletter stories that come right to your email inbox are not on the website. So you have to subscribe to the newsletter to get them, but there's like no issue for you to subscribe to the newsletter. It's free. It just comes right to your email inbox, which is sometimes convenient because then you can just like open the email on your phone, read it, wherever. So do that. And if you're not a diehard, what better time to become a diehard than right before the start of the season? This is going to be a really fun season. Every game night in the Discord is going to be absolutely electric. Yes. You have to be a diehard to be in the Discord. You get a free shirt or hat when you sign up for your membership. So Petey and I are both rocking the merch today. I got Southwest Bias, which I feel like kind of encompasses just the vibe of Arizona
versus everyone.
Arizona versus the world. We got Coyote shirts in the locker. We might have a new one dropping soon that I've heard is really pretty cool. So if you're already a diehard, you can get 20% off all of our merchandise, 20% off our events as well. So we encourage you to join the family, and we have a ton of great events coming up. Stay tuned for a home opener event.
Yes.
So just kind of mentally circle on your calendar, 11 a.m. around Mill Ave.
Yes.
On the 21st.
Yes.
That's all I'm going to say. And as always, you can join us for all of our PHNX Cardinals away game watch parties out at the BetMGM Sportsbook at State Farm Stadium for ticket raffles, prize giveaways, and more. The link is in our show notes for that. So it truly is the most wonderful time of the year.
And when you can see with the diehards too is at our trip to Tucson, like how close knit that group is becoming.
Like I told everyone there, I was like, I feel like we're all friends.
For sure.
Like it's actually the best feeling.
Well, most of them. Just kidding. I kid.
But Blatantly said, I hope the Wheel of Fantasy has been shipped to PHNX.
Yeah, we literally don't know where it is.
Mail it to them.
I think we sent it to Chicago or Philly. And actually, that's a good bit. See, that's blatant. That's really good.
Great
You don't have to use it. That was fun though.
But yeah, we had a blast this weekend.
Good time with our
and I know not everybody could physically be there. We saw you in the chat on Saturday, so we do appreciate all of you. And it was just so special seeing everyone. It felt like that. You go back to school after summer and everyone's like really excited to see each other. It's a new year. That's what that felt like. So we are extremely grateful for this family. And now we have an announcement that I'm very sad about.
Are we really doing this?
Yes, we're doing it. I'm very sad.
I'll let Leah handle this.
If I don't burst into tears. I promise you this is good news in the grand scheme of things, so don't freak out. But this is Sean DePaz's last show with us on PHNX Coyotes today. I could literally start sobbing right now. Sean is not leaving ALLCITY. Sean is still part of
this is good news. This is good news for Sean. Not great.
Not good news for us. We are we can't really say anything about what Sean's doing.
Yes.
I'll let him speak in a second. We can't really say anything about what Sean's doing, but it's extremely exciting, and I think everybody is going to be beyond thrilled about what's coming.
There's some cool stuff coming.
There's some really cool things
ALLCITY
coming, but it is a very devastating loss for me, Petey, and Craig, because Sean has been the fourth person on the show. It's not, and I know we joke around all the time. I always forget to say Sean's name, blah, blah, blah. But truly, for 2 years, Sean has been the backbone of this beat. And I couldn't be more grateful for the four of us. I'm literally going to cry. So
and I have a couple things, because we had a few producers that we ran through pretty quick because we're really hard to work for. And then DP settled into the job. And I'll tell you this, Sean DePaz at PHNX, and Leah called him the backbone. He literally jumps into every show. He'll jump in front of the camera.
I think he's been on every show.
He sometimes is on 4 live shows a day in any sport. And he's like, I'm in.
And
what do you need me to do?
Every graphic that you ever see come out ever.
Yeah, he does a lot. He's a bright kid. works incredibly hard. He will absolutely be missed on our beat because he loves the game of hockey, and I think he learned that with his Buffalo roots. So we're going to miss him. I'm so excited for the opportunity he has, and it's kind of like, and this is going to get a little corny, but it's kind of like watching my son. Like you hope that they're always around, but you know that they have to grow up and get move on and do great things. And Sean's going to do great things. Trust me. I am going to miss him more than just at work. He's a guy that I do lean on. I like giving him advice because whether he likes it or not, but he's a guy I've been able to talk to. He's going to be missed here. And it's his work ethic, his smile, his attitude, his vibe is going to be sorely missed here in our office. But I wish him the greatest of luck, and I'm so excited for his opportunity. And when you hear it, you're going to go, okay.
It's not BFLO. I'll just say that right now. The Sean.
PFLO, that would be awesome.
It's not, but
it's not.
No. I'm going to put you on the spot if you want to say anything. If you're not screaming.
I can confirm
Can you put yourself on the
Oh, yeah, I guess I can do that.
a little circle. Why not?
Can confirm it is not BFLO.
Although that's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, if it was, I'd be sprinting there. But no, I do. First off, I do have a feeling that the PHNX Coyotes crew in particular is going to be very interested in what I'm going to be up to. So stay tuned. But yeah, I mean, obviously you guys know what I'm up to, and all I'll say is that certainly wouldn't be possible without being a part of this beat and just y'all's encouragement and like almost forcing me to be a part of the show, which I'm very grateful for. But I mean, I say it all the time. This is my favorite part of my job, is producing the PHNX Coyotes show. I was very sad that I didn't get to go down to Tucson, especially considering that it would have been my last chance.
Yeah.
But a lot of people were asking about
you. So I heard. But no, I obviously everyone at PHNX is incredibly important as far as my like professional growth and everything, but genuinely nothing that I am doing would be possible without the three of y'all's encouragement and support. So I very much appreciate it, and without the encouragement and support of all the diehards, because I mean, I've talked about it before, not exactly a space with a whole lot of people that look like me in it. And so the support that I've gotten from the three of you and the Coyotes diehards has been like genuinely life-changing. So I very much appreciate it. But you will be seeing more of me soon. I can promise you that.
Yeah.
This might be the first time I've ever cried like on the air.
Yeah.
Like I almost cried on the
Tempe boat,
but whew.
Yeah, so I'll read the super chats from CWP Charles, who's one of our original OGs. $7.06. I assume the 716.
Is that the Buffalo?
Is that the Buffalo area code? Yeah, of course it is.
It is.
The CWP always digs deep. Thanks for everything, Sean. Hearts in saber blue and gold. Is it blue or purple? I don't know.
The Sabres?
Yeah.
Blue.
It's royal blue.
Royal blue. Okay.
It's like the bluest blue.
Well, we didn't have high def, so I thought it was always purple.
Fair enough.
When I was a kid. But anyway, thanks, Sean. Thanks for everything you do. Thanks for everybody for joining in today for this another landmark show. And we're less than a week away from opening night. Tune in on Friday to our watch along. We will be there for the entire game side by side.
Yeah, I'm so excited. This is going to be an amazing week. We have a special guest on tomorrow's show. Should we say it?
Yeah.
Derek Stepan will be joining our show tomorrow.
Talking retirement.
He just retired and he's coming on our show. So we sincerely appreciate that. We'll give some of our just greater NHL season predictions. We've talked about the big storylines, but we'll give some predictions on tomorrow's show. On Wednesday, we're going to preview the Central with Megan from DNVR. And then on Thursday, we're going to do our massive Coyotes season preview. So tune in every day this week at 11. And then Friday, as we mentioned, we'll be live for a watch along. The game's at 4 Arizona time. Petey and I will be live the whole time, and then we'll have our first post-game show, which I was literally sitting there eating breakfast this morning thinking, I can't wait for our post-game shows. The vibes in them are amazing. There's a lot of people I know who can't watch our 11 o'clock shows live, and it's just really exciting to think about everybody kind of being able to be there again, and especially to start the season. It's not an 8 p.m. start, it's a 4 p.m. start, so it's like the post-game show will be at a good time for everybody, so I can't wait. I've never been more excited for a Coyote season, I can't remember the last time I've been this excited. So it's going to be a great week. It's going to be a great season, and a change for us, but I think everyone's going to be really excited about who's stepping in as our producer, which we will announce later in the week. But we'll miss you, Sean. We appreciate you. And I have to stop time on it so I don't keep crying. But everybody, you can always subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts if you prefer to listen, if you like listening later, especially the 11 a.m.s, or if like the post-game show is way too late for you one night, you can listen to it on your drive the next morning. Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcast, we're there. And it really means a lot to us too if you leave us a review there as well, and share it with your friends. We're trying to grow this thing, and this is the one-stop shop for everything Coyotes. There's nobody who's talking about the Coyotes this much. So we really, really, really appreciate this family and this community, and just be sure to subscribe to the PHNX Sports YouTube channel as well, because there's so much more on there than just post games and live shows. We have tons of extra content as well. So you can follow us on Twitter at Sean_DePaz. He gets first. You can follow Craig for all of these practice updates at Craig S. Morgan. You can follow me and PD at Leah Merrill at S. Peters Hockey, and you can follow the show at PHNX_Coyotes. Thank you again to Thomas Drance from The Athletic for joining us. It's been a great show. We appreciate everyone's time. Hit the like button on this video on your way out. Enjoy the rest of your Monday, everybody, and we will see you all tomorrow.
We all silly like the mayor.